The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website.
Hello and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm Jerry Renaud. Today we have one of our favorite guests. It's the Chancellor of the University of Nebraska, Ronnie Green. Probably no entity has been more impacted by the COVID crisis than the university. From athletics to classes to the constant testing of students, it's been a challenging year. The Chancellor will be here to give us an update on how things are going. Don't you go away.
Good dental health not only contributes to the health of our teeth, but also our overall health. And this is particularly important in this time of COVID when there might be infections that could affect your body. Stay tuned for some helpful insights into dental health care.
Hi everybody, welcome to Live and Learn. I'm Kim Hachia. Today my guest is also named Kim. It's Kim Todd, who's from the University of Nebraska, and we're going to talk about landscapes and gardening. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Lita Powell-Drake, and what am I looking at? The Lincoln Journal-Star. Oh, you caught me reading the Lincoln Journal-Star. Oh, such special paper. And so we're going to talk about journalism today. And Dennis Buckley is with us today, and we're going to talk about the past and the future of newspapers. Stay with us.
This and more on today's Live and Learn.
Hello and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud. The University of Nebraska has had a difficult and challenging year, as all of us have. COVID-19 has certainly disrupted our lives, but when you're trying to deal with 25,000 plus students and faculty and a robust athletic program, dorm living, and more, it's one difficult challenge. Here to talk to us about that challenge and how the university has not only survived that challenge, but thrived is Chancellor Ronnie Green. Chancellor, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Jerry. Good to see you.
It's sort of hard to know where to start. I guess, first of all, I will say that this is going to be airing in March, and it is we're taping this in February. It's right after you gave your State of the University address, which again I was very impressed with, and I've seen and heard a lot of them. And but I thought this one was particularly interesting. We focused a lot on COVID-19 and a lot of those challenges that you and the university are facing. So I thought maybe let's sort of talk about some of those and deal with the COVID-19 part. One of the big ones is testing. It's one of the things that people keep saying you have to do if you're going to get through this process. And so tell us a little bit about how you've done that. And it seems like it's been pretty successful.
Yeah, well, Jerry, I guess I would start by giving a little bit of framing and background, right? You mentioned that we are a campus, the flagship campus of the university here of 25,000 plus students. This year we have about 25,200 students with us, which is our fourth highest number ever in history. So during a pandemic is great to be able to see that level of enrollment. And we have about 6,400 faculty and staff. We're one of the biggest employers in the state of Nebraska as well, that are part of that community. So almost 32,000 people that are working together with us here at UNL. And as I said earlier this past week, in the state of the university, I could not be prouder of this institution through what's been a global pandemic, through what's been the biggest civil rights time since the 1960s in our history. I just cannot be prouder of the institution and the way that we have come through this time period and succeeded in coming through in this time period. So I just wanted to say that right up front because it's absolutely the case. We have been very concerted in our efforts to continue our operations and to deliver on our mission, even with the precautions and the things that we've had to do to pivot to deal with the pandemic in particular. And as a result, when we came back in the fall semester, trying to be as in-person as possible with our instruction at UNL, we have avoided what many in higher education have been through. My colleagues in the Big Ten, Jerry, just as backdrop here, there are 14 institutions in the Big Ten. outside of Purdue University, our peers in Indiana. We are the only institution that has not largely curtailed and reduced our operations, both in terms of instruction and in research and in extension and outreach across the state. So I just got to say that right up front, how proud I am of, even under these conditions, that being the case. So you spoke to or asked about safety precautions and testing. So in the fall, we came back to the fall semester in August with the intent for us to be able to have our students on campus and to be as much in person in our instruction as possible at UNO. Now, what that meant in the fall was, under the conditions we were under, still relatively early. If you can think back that far, it's kind of hard to think back now that far. We still were relatively early in this pandemic, and we knew we had to socially distance. We knew we needed to use facial coverings. We knew we needed to follow CDC guidance and do all of the things that we could to protect our community and Lincoln's community, particularly, not just ours, but the community of Lincoln as well. And so we ended up having about 60% of our students who had at least some in-person experience. That meant that they were in class part of the time in a particular class, because we couldn't have the full class in the room at one time, and they would rotate through in the semester, kind of a hybrid format, or they had some courses that were fully online, large classes that were fully remote. We actually learned from that in the fall. That worked as well as possible, but it didn't work as well as we would like for it to. So we remapped our entire campus footprint. We determined that if we had our classes that were 75 or fewer students in total, that we could do those fully in person if we spread out our courses and still socially distanced and followed the same CDC protocols. So that's what we've done going into the spring. And we are, if not the most in-person campus in the US, we're right at the top of the most in-person. So very pleased about that. The way that we did that is that we knew we were going to need to have a much more robust testing protocol in place, thinking forward to more students in person in class every day, more people in our buildings every day, and winter indoors environment, as we've experienced really well here the last couple of weeks, right? With
Indeed.
The weather that we've had, where we knew we were going to be confined indoors and the risk of transmission is much higher, right? So we worked starting back in November to develop our own in-house PCR saliva-based rapid diagnostic testing for COVID. We in-house in our Nebraska Veterinary Diagnostics Center on campus that serves the livestock and animal industries across the state and the region, set up that system to be able to test our entire community upon re-entry, coming back in January to spring semester, and having a series of re-entry tests, which we ran 3 times. So we had students tested as they were coming back to campus, faculty and staff as well. And then we followed that 10 days later, and we followed that again 10 days later. So we've just finished this last couple of days. We have just finished our 3rd full round of testing our population. Very fortunately, I'm very happy that we have seen very low positivity rates for infection. So we started, I think in the first round, Jerry, it was about 0.8% positivity rate. That second test went down to 0.44. And this last round that we just finished is in the low 0.3s. So it's that. We still like to see that at 0, obviously. We like to see no infection, but we know that's not realistic in the conditions that we're in. So that has really provided both a sense of ease and calm, if you will. If you think about students who I talk to every day, they say we really feel good about the fact that we know that the tests are in place and there's access to our buildings based on you having the test protocols completed. With this level of in-person instruction. So very proud of our team, to stand that up and to be able to now run over 60,000 tests in a period of just a few weeks, literally. We had 14 testing sites all over our campuses that were built and constructed to make it easy for our people. There was an app that's been developed that everyone uses that shows your test result to be able to access buildings safely and to keep that process in place. So it's just been a Herculean task, but something that the university in years to come is going to look back and say, wow, we did that. And we did it successfully, and it mattered, right? That we've had that in place. We now have gone to random mitigation testing based on the low levels of positivity rate that we've seen, where beginning yesterday, actually, about 10% of our population is being randomly selected a week for ongoing testing, just to assure that we see the levels remaining low and that we see no pockets of spread on our campus. And those will continue to recur throughout the rest of the semester. So very proud of it, Jerry. A lot of work, but we feel like we've been in a very good place with this, and it's spelled out and I guess been seen in our enrollment, seen how our students feel about being back on campus and being safely on campus.
And Chancellor, I know it's probably difficult for you to do, but as you look to the future, and we're starting, the vaccine program is coming along.
Yep.
You are trying to get your faculty vaccinated, and so that is in the process as well, and should be happening reasonably soon, I would think. Where do you think the testing part will go as we look at the summer and the summer classes?
Yeah, we're not really sure, Jerry. I mean, I wish I could say that we knew exactly this was the way it's going to play out. But fortunately, as you mentioned, we are in the front end of the major large scale vaccination rollout across the country. And here we stand in early February, and I don't know what the latest number today is, 5, 6, 7%, something like that, of Nebraska's population thus far has been able to receive at least the first dose of the vaccine, and that's continuing to ramp up, and we are told to expect that to continue to ramp up to much larger weekly amounts of vaccine availability. So that's great. I think it gives a lot of optimism to us that we're seeing the light at the other end of this tunnel of the pandemic. So I would hope that, and I think we're planning in a contingency kind of way, that we would be at a position by the end of this spring semester. So think forward to late April, early May timeframe, that we would begin to see loosening of some of the restrictions that we've needed to have, right? So from a testing perspective, having the availability and the capacity to do testing as needed, which we will continue to have in-house. So even, for example, Jerry, even though we're only doing 10% of our population a week randomly, anyone can still go get a test on our campus that wants to do that through the remainder of the semester. So I'm guessing we'll have likely something greater than 10% of our population that are getting test data every week. And we'll continue that through the semester, right? If the conditions evolve to a level where there's very low and almost non-existent transmission, we obviously will pivot, and we'll probably remove the random mitigation testing or lower that random mitigation testing. I'm hoping by the summer and the fall, certainly going into fall 2021 semester in August, that we will be able to think about being back closer to normal. Now, when I say closer, I don't know if that means we'll be 100% fully in person with 300-person classes, for example, or whether we'll still have some level of spacing that we're going to keep distance with, the finishing of the vaccines, for example, where that stands. If Dr. Fauci is correct, right, and what we're hearing most recently, where we expect the vast majority of Americans to have the ability to be vaccinated by the end of the summer, toward the end of the summer, that will bode well for us, we think, to be in that position. We're obviously thinking about things, and I know your listenership is thinking about things like, will we be able to have people back in public venues? Will we be able to have the lead center for the performing arts back in more full-scale performances? Will we be able to have people at the spring red-white game and Husker football? Will we be able to have people at the NCAA volleyball tournaments in April? That's on everyone's mind. Trust me, it's on mine a lot, right? Whether we can get to those points, and I'm hopeful that we will. I mean, we are planning, for example, in Husker athletics, we're planning to have people in Memorial Stadium on May 1st for the red-white game. Now, whether that is 50% of the capacity or whether that's, we don't know what that number might be able to be yet, but we are planning for having live attendance at that game in May. We're actually planning later today, Jerry, as we're taping this, I'm working with our commencement committee. We haven't been able to have live commencements, as you know, since since December of 19, actually. It's the last live commencement we were able to have. We're hoping and thinking about having a very large live commencement in Memorial Stadium in May, and thinking about doing that again in person with people. And so we're optimistic that will be the case, and it will be moving forward in that way.
Excellent. I knew that we needed a full hour for this, but we only got 15 minutes, and so we are out of time. Chancellor, thank you so much for taking the time to give us a little bit of an update today on what's happening at the university.
Well, thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. And the university is here to serve the state of Nebraska, and I just, as I said starting earlier, I'm just so pleased that even under the conditions we've been able to deliver on our mission, and I'm looking forward to being able to be back fully delivering on it in more normal ways on the other side of the pandemic. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. And thank you for the great job you're doing. And thank all of you for tuning in today to Live and Learn. I'm Jerry Renaud. And remember, it's never too late to live and learn.
Hi, I'm Randy Jones with Aging Partners. Did you know that Lincoln expects a 75% increase in the number of seniors living in our community over the next 15 years? Aging Partners is a community service that provides fitness programs to help keep older adults strong and healthy. This year, Lincoln Cares donations are providing funds for new fitness equipment. You can help make this happen. Sign up to support Lincoln Cares and add $1 to your LES bill each month.
Welcome to Live and Learn. The pandemic has changed the way we live and maybe the way we do things and take care of ourselves. Included in that might be the way we take care of our dental health and our oral hygiene. I'm Doug Jose, and joining me today is Erin Haley Hitz, who is a dental hygienist at Southridge Dental Clinic here in Lincoln. And welcome to Live and Learn, Erin.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about yourself. First of all, how long you've been in the profession, and you've had some involvement beyond the clinic as well, using your expertise with some of your fellow dental hygienists.
Yes, Doug, I've been a licensed dental hygienist in Nebraska for 26 years, and I've been in clinical practice that entire time. Not all of it has been at Southridge Dental, but that is where I'm calling my home right now. Outside of clinical, I have served as the Nebraska State President for the Nebraska Dental Hygienists Association. And so I also have served on the national level for the American Dental Hygienists Association, currently as a Board of Trustees member. I have been active in my professional associations since I graduated from school from the University of Nebraska Medical Center in 1995. So that's my passion outside of my passion of dental hygiene and helping patients learn how to take care of their oral health.
Well, thanks, Erin. Let's talk a little bit about that. The pandemic has changed a little bit how we live. What have you observed in the way people are taking care of themselves?
Well, my observation is that since the time frame in March when a lot of individuals were sent home from work, their habits have changed, and there was an abrupt interruption in their habits, and some individuals have been struggling to stay healthy. Some patients have changed their habits so drastically that they're confused as to where they're eating and where they're sleeping and where they're working. So that's my observation going into where we're at right now in the pandemic. I have patients that are trying to figure out how to get healthy again because everything's kind of fallen apart.
So that's affected their dental health as well then.
Absolutely, it has.
And is the reasons just sort of the uncertainty involved, or how are people feeling about that?
Well, I think there's certainly a level of uncertainty that is affecting the patients that I see, but I think that the one item that I've noticed is just the confusion about their habits now that they're working from home. So their schedule has changed. They're not having to get up early in the morning and drive to work and drive kids to school if they have kids at home, homeschooling. So the whole schedule in the morning is a little off. Shower, eat breakfast, brush your teeth, all of those things which we take for granted in our schedule have been a bit confused, if you will.
So our dental health, though, can contribute to our overall health. I'm thinking maybe sinuses, but maybe beyond that. So what does it make us more susceptible to infections, for example, maybe even the COVID?
Well, yes, our oral health is connected to our systemic health. If we have oral inflammation, that can make us at higher risk of cardiovascular diseases and other systemic diseases, especially making complications occur with diabetes. And also, because of those situations that patients are dealing with, it can make you susceptible to COVID infection becoming worse for some individuals because of those underlying inflammatory conditions they have in their body.
Yes, well, let's get into the do's and don'ts then of dental health. How should we take care of our teeth? How many times a day should we brush, and what is the proper way to brush? Give us a little background.
Sure. So I typically encourage patients to make sure they're brushing twice a day. It does not matter in my book what time of day that is. You have to find what works for you. So brushing twice a day, and you want to make sure you brush for a full 2 minutes or longer if you need to. Some patients may need to just because of the situation they may have in their mouth. So I guess that when you are brushing, I have a model here.
Oh, good. Okay.
So when you are brushing, I'll just open a clean toothbrush here, and it's important to make sure that you're angling towards the gum tissue. I don't know if hopefully the camera can catch this, but you want to angle that brush towards the gum line and brush gently along that tissue of your teeth. You don't only want to focus on the teeth. We want to focus on that gum line because that's where the inflammation can occur and the bleeding in the gum tissue, which can make us more susceptible to those other systemic infections that can affect our overall health.
You bring up a point here about the gums, and I can't help but sort of talk about that because I can personally attest to the fact that that's important. I had some gum problems, and at the urging of a dentist, I changed how I brushed and so on, and how often, and also flossed, and that cleared up. So that's an important aspect of dental and oral health.
It certainly is. And flossing is just one way that you can clean in between your teeth. So there's several different tools. Like for instance, there's some small little inner dental brushes that can go between teeth. There's rubber picks. There's water flossers. There's all kinds of tools. I have all kinds of things sitting here on my desk that I could show you. But the idea is to disrupt that bacterial biofilm that's collecting around the teeth and in between. And so you want to use the proper size tool and the proper tool that you can use as if floss doesn't work for you, then maybe you need to find a different tool like the water flosser, because it might be easier for someone who might have dexterity issues, or say they've had a situation where they've had a stroke and they've lost use of an arm or a hand or something like that.
Yeah, that brings up another point about the dexterity issues. What about mechanical toothbrushes, for example?
Well, there certainly is a place. There's certainly a place for a mechanical toothbrush. You have to remember not everyone can afford one. So that's something to keep in consideration when I recommend a mechanical toothbrush. That's something that I try to help patients problem solve. Finding one that they can afford is important. So There's several different brands out there. They move a lot faster than I can move, for sure. So I recommend patients try those. There's also things that you can purchase that make the handle a little easier to hold on to. So these can be found online. This is like an easy grip that you can add to the toothbrush. Makes it longer if you can't raise your arm up to your face. The other item makes the handle a little bit wider. So if you have a dexterity issue and can't hold on to the smaller handle, then it makes it a little wider. So if you have arthritis in your hand or your wrist, and so to speak. So if you talk to your dental health care provider, they can help you find those items because they're available on the market.
So the flossing isn't necessarily the ultimate. There are other tools that you can use as well.
There are other tools, and it's okay to try other tools because floss may not work for everyone. And I've got some patients, their hands are so large they can't even get them in their mouth. So that's where the brushes come in, or the water flosser. You know, you can buy a long handled floss holder as well. I don't have one of those to show, but there's lots of options out there. So you have to be open to trying something a little different if you're struggling with the traditional string floss.
What about mouthwashes? Any recommendations there?
Well, mouthwash is certainly something you can use. It certainly doesn't hurt, but it's important to remember that it does not replace the toothbrush. So the toothbrush is cleaning approximately about 20% of your entire mouth. So the rinse is going to be useful in controlling bacteria that might be collecting on your tongue or the back of your throat. Places where we're not going to put a toothbrush just simply because it's not very comfortable to put a toothbrush in those places. You can brush your tongue with this. That certainly is an option that controls bacteria as well. So if a patient wants to use a mouthwash, I fully support that. I just make sure that they understand that it doesn't replace the brushing or the flossing that they need to be doing.
Erin, are there particular issues that maybe you observe with seniors that we should be highlighting here?
Well, I think I highlighted a few of them, you know, the arthritis, if you can't hold on to a traditional toothbrush. I think too, to remember that if you're taking medications that can affect your salivary flow and the function of your saliva, so it can cause some dry mouth per se. So using products that aren't going to make that dry mouth worse is really important. Back to your comment about mouthwashes, it's important to probably stay away from a mouthwash that has alcohol if you have dry mouth. The other item is that dry mouth makes anyone and any individual at any age susceptible to dental decay. And I don't think that anybody that has advanced dental care work, crowns and bridges and things like that, want to have recurrent dental decay. So it's important to be using products that aren't going to contribute to more dental decay. It's important to think about how we can prevent that. And one thing that I encourage the patients that I work with to consider is a fluoride treatment in the office. So that can deliver a large concentration or a high concentration of fluoride to the tooth and reduce your risk of decay by 75%. So I encourage patients to ask for that when they come into the dental office.
How often should they do that?
Well, you can do a fluoride varnish every 6 months, depending upon your risk. You could do it twice a year or once a year. I have some patients that their risk is quite high, so they might do that every 4 months if they come in that often.
So are you saying then that we should be coming and seeing you more often than twice a year?
That depends upon your individual needs. I have some patients that do come in more often, and I think that's something that can be determined with a conversation with your own dental health care provider, because that's determined on an individual basis. But most people come in twice a year to see me.
So the bottom line, though, is that even in this pandemic era, we should be having our dental checkup at least twice a year. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That preventative care is so important, not only for your oral health, but for your systemic health as well. So that way, then you will fight off, if you get a COVID infection, you have the ability to become healthy from that.
Yeah, I think that's a key bottom line here. It's not just dental health that we're talking about, but our overall health.
Absolutely.
Erin, this has been really interesting, and Thanks a lot for your insights. And we just encourage people to keep up with those dental practices and be aware of the dental health. So thanks a lot, Darren.
You're welcome, Doug. Hope you have a great day.
Remember, it's never too late to live and learn about dental and oral health.
Hi, I'm Randy Jones with Aging Partners. Did you know that Lincoln expects a 75% increase in the number of seniors living in our community over the next 15 years? Aging Partners is a community service that provides fitness programs to help keep older adults strong and healthy. This year, Lincoln Cares donations are providing funds for new fitness equipment. You can help make this happen. Sign up to support Lincoln Cares and add $1 to your LES bill each month.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Live and Learn. My name's Kim Hachia. I'm your host today. I want to once again give a big, huge thank you to the folks down at LNK TV and to Aging Partners, who is the entity that produces the show, and the LNK folks help us do it in this safe Zoom era manner. So thank you very much to those fine professionals for the city of Lincoln. My guest today is a longtime friend of mine. Her name is Kim Todd. Full disclosure, Kim and I used to work together at the university, and we worked on a lot of projects together, so I'm sure that was confusing to have the double Kims, but that's just how it worked out. Anyway, Kim is well, she has a new title, I guess. It's called Landscape Specialist for the University of Nebraska Extension. I think of her as an extension horticulturalist. I think many people think of her as the queen of backyard farmer, which is on NET television and is gonna be probably ramping up pretty soon here. So welcome to the show, Kim. I'm glad that you're here today.
Well, thanks for the offer, Kim. It's a beautiful day to be talking landscape and gardening.
Yeah. You know, because of COVID, so many of us have been kind of isolated in our houses. And I think a lot of us are starting to look for things to do outside of the house. I mean, now that the vaccines are going, we're gonna be able to be a little bit more free, but I'm just wondering if gardening and activities that are closer to home, if you have seen an uptick in interest in that, and or just an uptick in interest in gardening in general. And is it, to me, I think of gardens as being both vegetable and flowers or shrubs, but so what do you think about that?
We saw an exponential increase across the country. National Gardening Bureau's research said there were 16 million new gardeners last year. We had almost a 200% increase in all of our emails and our backyard farmer contacts. So absolutely a fabulous uptick for those of us who love the gardening world.
Right. So why do you think that is? I mean, not only were we stuck at home, but I mean, what are some of the benefits of having a garden and just being able to, and maybe we can define garden pretty broadly, because a garden can be a pot on the porch with a little cherry tomato plant in it, or it can be
acres.
Acres, yeah.
Exactly. Well, Kim, I know that a lot of people were stuck at home. They could go outside. They had their children, their grandparents, so multi-generational. Go outside, enjoy the sunshine, get some exercise, great teachable moment, even though it's a little bit vicarious. Enjoy the butterflies, the birds, all those good things. And a lot of people were very concerned, as they probably should have been, about food security, food safety, getting their own food, and then knowing where it came from. And people who really have gardened or had not, you know, there's such a difference between a cherry tomato in a box from the store and a cherry tomato from that pot on the patio. So however people chose to garden, it was still gardening.
Yeah, that's great. I have heard, I don't know if it's true, that this year it's going to be a little bit harder finding seeds, because a lot of people are planting from seed, or you know, looking for garden starts or something like that, which we're taping this in February. Monday it was 31 below zero, so it's probably a little bit early to put those tomato seeds in the peat pots, but I know people are itching to get their fingers dirty.
Oh, they are. And you're right. It is a little early for some of those things. We actually, for Lifestyle Gardening, did a segment on too early, too stretched. People ran out of seeds last year, and already not just seeds, but other gardening elements or landscape elements, like even patio block or fire pit sorts of things that enhance your garden area. We really want to encourage people to not delay. Now, granted, a lot of the suppliers ramped up the effort a little bit, but especially with seeds and plants, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years for them to be able to rebuild the supply. So people need to be encouraged instead of discouraged, and maybe change their mind a little bit about what they get to grow.
Right. I know that when you were at the university in the landscape services division, you were kind of, with Bud, was kind of the early wave of what I would call Nebraska style gardening or prairie gardening, prairie style. Now is, I'm not even gonna say how long ago that was, but you know, you see a difference on campus because of that, of your fingerprints on that. And do you think that that's taking hold more in just people's backyard gardens? Are we seeing more of that? And maybe talk about that kind of a trend, that trends in gardening.
Sure. We are seeing a return to some of that, Kim, and it has a great deal, I think, to do with people embracing our native plants and the adapted plants that go with them, wanting those pollinators. That people are so interested in attracting pollinators, and an awful lot of our native plants, of course, do a great job of doing that. So I think also it is a greater acceptance on the part of at least some people of a less tidy, a less manicured, you know, lower input, but higher impact landscape than you get from necessarily a very simple mowed turf and some boxwoods.
Right. I think we have a picture on the screen, or we just did, maybe it'll come back, of the Backyard Farmer Garden, which is on East Campus. And kind of in the front of the picture there, behind the rock, is that your water garden, or what do you call that? The rain garden?
That's our rain chain. Yeah, and we actually have 5 different areas that deliberately capture the runoff, clean the water before it discharges, of course, into the aquifer. Great plants in there. It's only about 4 years old, and those were all planted either by plugs, many of which were spring affair plants or arboretum plants, and by volunteers. So great example of something people can see that's a little bit of that style.
Right. And that garden is tended by master gardeners, right?
It is. They are just instrumental in making sure that our backyard farmer garden is fabulous pretty much all year, except of course in the winter. And it's still fabulous. We just don't have volunteers.
Right. Because I haven't been out there in a while, but I would imagine because of the way that you plant, there is a lot of winter interest there.
There is.
So does that garden attract different kind of wildlife that live at, I've actually seen deer on East Campus. So I know the secrets out there. Do they ever tromp up to the garden and help themselves?
We don't see the deer very often. We do see the foxes, and the foxes are after the wascally wabbits, which is great with us because we don't need them eating our plants, which they're doing to everybody this year with the snow covering. We have a lot of voles. We have great bird populations. And of course, butterflies and pollinators are technically wildlife. We just tend to not think of them as wildlife. We think of them as insects.
Oh yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought of that. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So let's talk a little bit more about this whole prairie style thing. How would you define that, or what makes a prairie style garden different from a traditional sunken garden look?
So, prairie style suggests that it is the grasses and the forbs or the perennial plants in combinations the way nature would paint.
Oh, okay.
Nebraska style is the same thing, and yet you think about the great diversity of ecosystems across the state. Well, Nebraska style can also be shrublands or woodlands. It has a great deal more to do with how those plants are chosen and placed. Great diversity of species. And, there's a difference really between diversity where you have one of everything, so nothing matters, or you have too much of one thing and then what's the point? So it's that balance, that combination of many different species, bloom times, interest over the winter, acceptance of, gosh, those grasses look just great when they're standing tall and tan in February instead of looking like a hydrangea in June. So
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I just love to be able to say, this is this place. This is not someplace else. Let's celebrate this place.
Right. I know that we were talking off camera. We don't even know how old the event is, but Spring Affair, which is
Right.
managed now by the statewide Arboretum, is coming up in April. It's all going to be online this year, virtual, as it was last year. But
Right.
you were part of the group that started that fantastic event. I don't know, in the 1980s or 90s.
Right.
And I do think that had a big impact on changing people's mindsets about gardens and what was cool. You know, you'd wait all year to Spring Affair so you can get your little Liatris because you couldn't get it anywhere else.
Exactly.
But now you can get it at
lots of places.
You know, and because people like me went to a typical garden center and said, hey, I want this plant.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. So do you have a favorite type of plants? Are you a grasses girl, a Liatris girl?
There's a question. You know, I grew up in Eastern Iowa in the woods. So I'm a tree person in the city, because without that shade and that protection, the city becomes a pretty brutal place. And then I'm a sky person. I love the horizon. I love the prairies. I tend to like fall the best. All of the incredible colors, the goldenrods, the asters. You mentioned Liatris as a favorite. It's really hard for me to pick just one favorite because I have so many. But it's that sense of those plants together that I think is just fabulous.
Right. And you mentioned sort of the fall gardening. I think a lot of people tend to have a spring garden that looks pretty dang fantastic looking in, you know, in May and June. Then they kind of peter out, you know, and everything starts looking pretty bedraggled in August. And unless you have planned for that,
right,
that fall situation of the beautiful purple New England asters or the whatever, your garden's going to look kind of sad.
Kind of ready for winter. Well, and part of the reason that I like that, Kim, is both because of the colors and the sky, but also when I was the landscape architect for the university, the students come back in the fall.
Right.
So make spring as nice as we can if we even get a spring before they all graduate. And let's make fall extend that incredible character and beauty as long as we can.
Yeah.
So,
well, also, we wanted the campus to look beautiful for football.
Oh, totally must. Yeah. Especially, you know, when we get to come back to the stadium, we want it to just be spot on.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You know, I remember you and I were still working at the university during that 97 storm.
Oh my.
And I remember running into you in Canfield and you were like, you couldn't even talk.
I know.
You just gave me this look like, don't even go there.
I know.
And
devastating. Devastating.
It's so amazing though, because 30 years out,
who would know?
Who would know?
And you know, and that's the beauty and the resilience of a landscape. People forget. You can't set it and forget it, because the minute you put it in the ground, its lifespan is just like ours. You know, you're one way or the other. So you, thank heavens, landscape services and the university said, this is important to us. Let's make sure our campus is a place of beauty and rest and education, and let's replant. We get to do that for all of our lives. That's just the great thing.
Yeah. Well, Kim, thanks. We're out of time.
Well, this is fabulous, Kim.
I know, it went lickety split. So,
it did.
Yeah. So thanks so much for being my guest today. And I'd like to remind our viewers that it's never too late to live and learn about the garden and landscapes around us.
Hi, I'm Randy Jones with Aging Partners. Did you know that Lincoln expects a 75% increase in the number of seniors living in our community over the next 15 years? Aging Partners is a community service that provides fitness programs to help keep older adults strong and healthy. This year, Lincoln Cares donations are providing funds for new fitness equipment. You can help make this happen. Sign up to support Lincoln Cares and add $1 to your LES bill each month.
Hi, I'm Lita Powell Drake, and today we're going to be talking with somebody very, very special that I know you know who this person is. Dennis Buckley, right from Lincoln, Nebraska. He's been in the journalism business for 45 years. My dear, what drove you to come into this business, this crazy business of journalism?
Well, Lita, it's not like I was born in a log cabin, but it does go back a long ways. Back in the early 70s, I was a high school senior, and there was a thing called a trades and industry, also known as T&I program in high school, where it allowed high school seniors to work at a place that they hoped it someday would be their profession. And there happened to be a printer's devil position open at the newspaper.
Printer's devil, what does that mean? Printer's devil.
Printer's devil is a sexy way of saying a pressman apprentice. Yeah.
Oh.
You cleaned the blankets
Oh,
on
yeah.
the press and did basically stuff no one else wanted to do, and it kept me out of trouble theoretically. And I worked after school doing that. And about that time, the Vietnam War was raging, and the sports editor was being drafted. And there was a need to cover high school sports on Friday nights. So I started doing that, and they identified a talent and said, you know, we will send you to Iowa State to get some training in journalism if you promise to come back and write for us and shoot for us. So that's how it all came about. And I was sports editor throughout the 70s. And I was news editor there from 79 to 88. And it was just a tremendous experience. It was the Harlan, Iowa Tribune and News Advertiser. It was owned by, the patriarch was Leo Morse. He came to town in 1939. He was the first Iowa Master Editor Publisher Award winner in 1956. He continued to run the paper until the year 2000. And two of his sons also followed him in the business, and both of them also won the Iowa Master Editor Publisher Award. We all took a break, and they gave me mine.
Well, when did you come to Lincoln?
1988, I saw an ad in the World Herald for a newspaper that was being developed by Scott Stewart, who owned the Sun newspapers, and the World Herald were combining forces on a community-wide newspaper, and that was called the Capital Times. And I became that editor of that first paper in 1988, and I was there for 18 months.
Well, what's the story that you have done that you're the most proud
of? One of the most exciting ones that I've just caught me by surprise was like in 2016, Mary Jane Nielsen called me one day and she said, what are your favorite nonprofits? And I said, Capital Humane Society and Lincoln Children's Zoo. Why? And she says, oh, no problem. Just wondering. And lo and behold, they gave me $20,000 to split between those two charities of my choice. They were selling off the proceeds of the building that they owned at 14th and L Streets. The Lincoln Women's Club had sold that building for almost $1 million, I believe.
That was a beautiful building.
Lo and behold, I was just humbled beyond belief. But those two checks were delivered to those two very favorite nonprofits.
Okay, well now, you're a freelance writer. What is a freelance writer?
Really what I've been doing the last 3 years in retirement is working by the story or by the hour. And you know, that's a busy day for me is 2 hours of work, and I try to squeeze it in between naps, like most retirees. But it's a wonderful way to keep in touch with the community and keep the juices flowing.
Well, you've received many, many awards, the Mayor's Arts Award, among others. Now, don't be shy. Tell me some of the other things that you have won.
Probably the one I'm most proud of is being a 3-time nominee, selected by the Journal-Star for the Lead Enterprises Spirit Award. As recently as 2007, I was nominated by Kathleen Rutledge, whom everyone knows.
Yeah.
And I also, received the Lincoln Education Association Friend of Education Award, among others, the University of Sertoma Club Service to Mankind Award, and the Lincoln, the YWCA Nettie Nelson Partnership Award. So among others, but those are very high on my list. Very grateful.
Let's put up some of the pictures of some of the things that you have done in the past, because you've been very, very versatile going away. And in particular, maybe there you go, on the cover of Living Well magazine. When would that have been?
It was 2006. Interviews was conducted by June Peterson, and pictured from left are Jeannie Combs, who at that time was a state senator, Jim Gordon, the Lincoln attorney with the famous handlebar mustache, and Karen Kuhn, who at that time was with Lincoln Children's Museum as their marketing officer.
And then there's you.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, that's Living Well. And how old is the Living Well magazine? I have no idea. How long has it been around? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Maybe
I really don't. Yeah,
forever.
they do. They do a wonderful job.
All right, let's take a picture of look at the picture of one of the birds that he has shot. I think at the Children's Zoo. Well, we'll start with you first. There you are. Oh, the editorial. Let's see. What does that say?
Editor's Corner.
Editor's Corner, and there you are as a young person. And then we all got 8. Now, this is one of the pictures you took at Children's Zoo, isn't it?
That is true, Lita. And that's
gone to the birds.
Yeah, and no pun intended, but that's a rare bird to find that setting where they're that close together. That's just highly unusual. But a photojournalist once told me on great photos, the best thing is there are 2 things to remember: F8 and be there. F8 is kind of a universal aperture setting that, if taken outside, will get you some sort of usable negative, and be there is, you gotta be trailing the fire truck to get the great fire photo.
So you have to have a special camera to do that kind of work?
It doesn't help. You don't have to have the best, but you have to know how to use your equipment more than anything. Randy Hampton at the Journal once told me that the best thing about a digital camera is the automatic setting. The worst thing about a camera is the automatic setting, because once you rely on the automatic, people become too reliant on it, and then they're reluctant to venture from that comfort zone.
Yeah, well, there's so many changes happening now. What with the pandemic coming, everything's changing, and fewer people are buying the newspapers these days. So I'm concerned about the status. If you look at the Lincoln Journal-Star, it's getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, and people are not. And the price went up too.
Yes.
So I'm worried. What do you think the future is for newspapers? Are we going to hang around?
I think certainly during my lifetime, I think the newspaper will be around. Beyond that, I'm not sure. I thought about that the other day, and I thought, I've got a granddaughter who's going to be 9 in Sioux City, and she's probably never even heard of a paper boy.
Oh.
And so
Did you carry
that's
the paper
kind of,
when you were a child?
I'm sorry?
Did you ever carry the paper when you were a
No,
child?
I did not.
My son,
No.
my son was a newspaper carrier.
Okay.
You had to get up real early, rain or shine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and of course, everybody remembers when the Journal and the Star merged in 1996. All those paper boys went away, the after-school jobs, and that was unfortunate, but it was just a sign of the times. But the Journal Star has done a wonderful job of identifying revenue streams to make up for those print advertising dollars that have been lost over the years. And a great example of that is the Inspire series of luncheons that they have had since 2015 to recognize leading women in the community. And that has generated a lot of revenue and awareness, and about 800 people that attend their annual luncheon at the Cornhusker Marriott.
Well, what do you think is in the future for papers? Is it going to go away?
No, I don't. Like I say, I think that they're probably fine for now. I think only the strong survive, and if they're still around now, I think they're going to be around for a while. There were some casualties in the beginning, but I think Lincoln has such a tremendous population base that I think the Journal Star has some very strong leadership, led by publisher David Thomas and editor Dave Bundy.
Well, I am so lucky because my newspaper carrier puts my paper in my door. He comes right up and puts it in every single day. And it's just so wonderful. You just have to open the door and there's the newspaper.
You've got a
keeper. The only problem I'm having now is the print is getting very, very small. My eyesight is not as good as it used to be. So I am struggling, to read the newspaper. I'm sure that the seniors are having difficulty. So I asked the newspaper, please increase the size of the print so I can read it better.
Good for you.
Hey, Dennis.
They do want to know what their subscribers are thinking. That's good. They love feedback.
Well, our thanks to Dennis Buckley. He's a very special guy.
Thank you very
remember,
much.
it's never too late to live and learn more about journalism.